Welcome to The Successful Pitch, where we interview startups who have received funding as well as investors who share their criteria for what makes a winning pitch. With your host, author, and funding strategist, John Livesey.
Hi, and welcome back to The Successful Pitch. Today's guest is Randy Rayess, who's the co-founder of VenturePact, which finds software developers for companies that need it. He's also an angel investor, and ironically, both what he does at VenturePact and being an angel investor requires screening good talent to be on your team. He said you need a cultural fit, good communication, and figuring out the combination of passion and the ability to motivate others, and are you a self-starter or not? And that when you come up with your problem to solve for the marketplace, if you're working on a tough problem, you need to realize it requires both patience and persistence. Randy has some great insights as to exactly how to look at life and how to make your business successful. In fact, he was a finalist in the Innovative Awards for 2014, and he's got all kinds of innovative ideas that he shares with us in this interview. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to the Successful Pitch podcast. Today's guest is Randy Rayess, who is the co-founder of VenturePact, as well as being an angel investor. So Randy has incredible insights into investing and figuring out what the market needs as far as what the problem is to solve, so much so that he was a finalist in Innovator of the Year for 2014. So he's got lots to share with us. Welcome to the show, Randy.
Thanks for having me.
Randy, I gave, as you heard, a brief introduction as to who you are, but I would love for you to take our listeners back to how did you get the entrepreneur bug? Was it while you were in college, or did you even earlier?
I think it was more a fortunate kind of stream of events where a few of my friends had recommended I check out a few companies, and one of them was in LA and one of them was in San Francisco. So I kind of worked for a summer in LA. Then I worked in San Francisco for a bit. And it was kind of working in that environment that got me into it. So I stumbled upon some entrepreneurial companies and they kind of got me into that mindset. So it was more a random stream of events.
Is VenturePact your first co-founding startup, or was there another company you were involved with before VenturePact?
Formally co-founding at VenturePact was the one where the one I spent the most time on and the one we're still working on, and has been most exciting. I've worked on a lot of other startups informally or formally in different types of roles. Some are more junior roles, some are analyst roles, some are developer roles. But I think I've been able to work at different types of startups to get a sense of, what are the challenges of working at small companies, and what are the kind of the opportunities that exist, and how that varies from obviously larger companies where it's a very different working environment.
Well, that is a great segue into your experience led you to see a problem that a lot of startups have, which is a shortage of quality software developers, correct?
Yes.
And obviously investors are very interested in who's on your team and the synergy that you have, and do you have developers that have a good track record of working for other startups that have been successful. So you and your partner decided, let's figure out a way to match developers with the right companies. And that's the dawning of VenturePact. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
How long ago did you start, and how did you decide that you could come up with something that caused you to be a finalist in being so innovative?
Yeah, sure. I think the key for us was we had worked, so after I worked at a few startups, and I got into the investing space, and my business partner, Pratham, who I had known from college, also had worked at a few startups and had a small, some experience in investing. And so we both kind of recognized that when we worked with companies that there was a bottleneck when it came to executing on software, building web apps, mobile apps. And the question we always we thought about was, this is a pretty big problem. It's kind of consistent across the board for technology companies. Is like, how do we get better talent, and how do we get more talent? Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of got us excited about the problem, was that it was pretty kind of ubiquitous. The way we thought about solving it was, we knew this was a tough problem to solve, right? When a lot of companies have a problem and their solution there's no really good solution, it means that it's not an easy problem to solve. So we said, okay, that's exciting that we're working on that tough problem. When we knew it's not something you can work on overnight, that you can solve in one night. So we looked at kind of the key problems. And one of the main things was just the supply-demand imbalance, which is the key issue when you constrain yourself to a local, like, small radius around your office. Mm-hmm. So what we got more excited about was the concept of remote work, and if we could help companies figure out how to hire remote talent and help companies engage with remote talent, then you could be sitting down in New York and you could hire someone in Wisconsin. You could be sitting in San Francisco and you can hire someone from Denver. And you can be sitting in Florida and hire someone from Tennessee. So you can start doing these things that initially were not available, and suddenly the pool of talent available increases quickly.
I love what you said there earlier about when you guys realized that you were working on a tough problem. If it was an easy problem, it would have already been solved by some other startup. But it's so important for the listeners to realize that if you are solving a problem in the marketplace with your product or offering, or SaaS, whatever it is, if it's a tough problem, it's not going to get solved overnight. That's such an important point. And to realize not only are you guys helping people think outside the box, but literally think outside their geographic area.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's one of the things with startups is that it does require a lot of patience and extreme persistence. Because if you are solving a problem that's not easy to solve, which most startups are, unless you're trying to do something and focus more on like the fashion, the marketing side. If you're more of a tech startup,
right,
usually you're working on something that's difficult. The product is difficult. In fashion, it's more the marketing that's difficult. But in any case, I think the key is that you just need to have a lot of patience, and it doesn't happen quickly. There are very few companies that, some companies will grow very quickly and able to address a problem and grow right from like the first few months. Most companies, to really find what you call product market fit, and then a scalable, repeatable process post product market fit, that does take time, and so you have to have that patience and persistence and to get through that.
I love alliteration, so that's going to be one of the tweets from this podcast. Patience and persistence from Randy Rayess. The double R meets the double P, right?
I like it.
So tell us about being an angel investor and how being an entrepreneur helped you when you're doing your own analysis to decide who you're going to invest in.
I think everyone always says it's the people that matter most with companies. And the reason is that at the end of the day, what a technology company is doing today is going to be different from what that same technology company is going to be doing in 3 years. And that's pretty much across the board. So technology companies are in the business of innovation. So when you're in the business of innovation, what differentiates companies is talent. And so talent is like the number one most important thing. And I think that's the key. And so the question is, how do you screen talent? And it's interesting because that's what we do at VenturePact. We screen development talent.
I love that. Let's just take a minute and really focus on how much insight you have into screening talent that's going to be the right fit for a company to hire. And then as an angel investor, you had to screen the talent of the team to see if that was the right team to invest in for you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting. There's some similarities and some differences. So with tech talent, right, you look at there's the coding skill set, which is pretty clear. Like, you have to assess them for coding if you're going to code. There's a lot of other things that need to be assessed for, which is cultural fit and communication. And then there's remote specific things that we have to screen for, because when you hire someone who's remote, it's different from hiring someone who's sitting across from the table from you. So there is remote specific things we have to do for screening, but obviously communication and cultural fit is and just the concept in the assessment of someone actually being a self-starter and self-motivated to be able to manage this remote environment. So that's the key. Vetting people for founding companies. The key difference is you're also looking for people who you think can motivate other people to join them, can motivate other people to handle, because if you think of a startup, so think about it like you have this kind of crazy marathon run with a bunch of obstacles on the run.
I love that.
And so you want to think about which person is going to be able to get over all those obstacles and convince his team to jump with him over these obstacles. Sometimes it might take you a while to figure it out. And so you're going to be frustrated when you're stuck behind one bottleneck, but you need someone who is passionate about a problem, someone who understands it, and someone who has that ability to lead and motivate teams and convince people to join, even when they come across all these challenges.
That's so insightful. So when someone's pitching an angel investor, you or anyone else, they need to come across as someone who not only is passionate and understands their market, but the key element that you really honed in on there is, can you motivate other people, A, to join your team, and B, stay motivated to run that marathon with you. And
Yes.
how do you have, that's a lot of skills for one person to have. And the need to have all that come across in a pitch is really key. Can you talk to us about some of the best pitches you've heard and what made you say, wow, that's someone I want to be in?
Sure. I think one of the key things I want to qualify is that it's a team of people that you're vetting. It's not one person. So when you're founding a startup, you're vetting the team, which is different from one person. But when we vet a team of developers, it's also different from vetting a founding team that's going to run a company.
Right.
So that's one thing I wanted to. When you're looking at vetting a team to start a company, obviously you also want to understand the market that they're in and what their problem is. So if they're going after like a food company, food tech, right? Then you want to see like what's their experience in food and like the basic things around their understanding of that industry. But then what are the key characteristics of someone who's going to implement this, right? So you're going to need someone who really understands ops and supply chain, right? Operation supply chain. And then they're going to need someone who's going to think about distribution and how to get their products wherever they need to go, which is like sales and distribution. And then you can think about the technology, which is the technology product that they're using to manage whatever they're trying to do. So in food tech, so ideally you have three people: one who's a master of supply chain, one who's a master of distribution, one who's a master in distribution and sales, and one who's really good at tech. And then you have a good team mix if they're all really talented at what they do, and so that's kind of the first layer is like, do they have the right combination of skills? Second layer is how excited and passionate are they about this concept? Okay, so. And if you're someone who's like been in the space and understands it and has been in it for a while, they recognize a problem. Usually the problem is well informed, right? So you've been in this, you understand the space. So you have reasonably good understanding of the problem. So can you define the problem that you're going after very well? And do you understand it? And then the next thing is, can they talk through intelligently about problems? And do you feel like they live and breathe like this question of how to solve it? Are they living and breathing and thinking about it all the time? And as you discuss it with them, you can see. If you ask them a question and they don't know the answer to it, and you're asking them a question, or they can't answer it intelligently, and they're like, oh, I've never heard of that question. Usually that's like pretty bad because you've only spent 10 minutes hearing this, and you already come up with a question that if they've never, Now, sometimes if it's a younger company, it might happen, but ideally, they're like, we've thought about that. That's a great question. And they have a bunch of things. These are possible solutions. We can't guarantee these are right. We're going to test them out. Or this is why that's a bad question. That means they're thinking about this all the time and it's in the back of their head. And so there's a couple of things there, but really it's an imperfect science to judge people. It's an imperfect science.
It's like hiring, yes. So when you have heard a pitch, besides the combination of the right people and being able to define and understand what the problem is and that they live and breathe it, is there any one pitch story that stands out to you that's like, not only did they have all that come across, but they told me a story that made it interesting and memorable that made me want to invest? Is anything pop into your head for that, or something that you would describe VenturePact if you were to come up with a story? Do you have a specific story of somebody not being able to find somebody and how you solved that problem, and then it did all the great things that happened once they had the right match?
Yeah, so I'll take the second point around the story for VenturePact. Yeah, I think we have a lot of stories like that, and what's interesting is I can give you one example is. So working with a company, they have a really cool product, and they're trying to say like, all right, what we're trying to do is we're trying to change the way companies co-browse. So a lot of customer service people, when they're trying to speak with their customers, they're speaking over the phone, and it's hard to really communicate the problem you have. So if you can actually browse the same, co-browse and like be on the same page at the same time, then it would be very powerful for all these customer service people. And there's obviously thousands of customer service people, and all these big companies have this problem. And so they were like, okay, this is actually not an easy technology problem to solve because you have so many different browsers and different types of browsers, et cetera, et cetera. So they needed to scale their tech team. And so they came to us and like, all right, we need to scale our tech team. They're very talented developers, but again, you can only do so much as a few developers. So they wanted to scale out their team, and they were looking for people with specific language experience and specific experience with browsers. And so we connected them with a team that fit that criteria that they wanted, which is their budget, their location preferences, and their technology skills that they wanted. And they were able to build that out. And they built a very powerful co-browsing platform, and then they were able to sell the company for a very nice return. And it was basically they had a great idea, They had built a solid solution. They just needed to scale it out, and they just needed tech talent.
I love that story because there's a problem. You provided the solution, scaling it, and the result was they were able to sell the company that would never have happened had they not used VenturePact.
Right.
That's the kind of quick, easy to understand problem, solution, results formula that I love to work with my clients on, getting that everybody can easily grasp and understand. Can you speak a little bit, Randy, about the cultural fit? Not so much with what you're placing people into the company, but it's the same kind of thing when you're wearing your angel investor hat. What do you look for in a company culturally? Do they have a culture defined, I guess, to see whether it's a culture fit for you personally to invest in?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. What do you look for in a company as an angel investor? What kind of culture do you look for to decide whether that fits you and you're the kind of culture you like to work in? Obviously, you're an innovative person, so I'm guessing that you like to work with companies that have that as their culture, but there are other things that you look for in a culture?
Sure. One thing I like, obviously, and we like to look for in companies that we work with, is if we're going to mentor and guide companies, it's obviously better if we have, the experience relevant to what they're looking for. So if it's a company that's innovating, like a woman's purse company,
Yes.
like it's a new woman's purse,
Right.
I don't know that market that well. I don't have that much experience in buying women's purses. I just don't know the industry. So
Right.
I'm not going to be able to give a lot of guidance. I can give some guidance into like tech marketing and some guidance into their tech product, but I'm not going to be the best investor for them, right? They need someone who understands fashion, understands their customer. Whereas if someone's doing a marketplace product, right, if they're building a marketplace or they're building something relevant to remote work or they're building something relevant to procurement or B2B services or B2B buying or payments or things that like we spend a lot of time on or international transactions, international. That's what we specialize in. So that's where I can add a lot more value because, we've had to deal with a lot of those challenges as we built up VenturePact. And so Pratham and I can add a lot more value, and my business partner and I just like have a better understanding of these things. So I think, the key is like how much value can we add and how good of an understanding of a space of the space do we have.
So you're not just interested in giving money, you're interested in becoming a partner with them and using your expertise to make the company grow. So you're investing your money and your skill set, it sounds like. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I think one of the ways that is accurate. I would add another point to it. Would be you're going to invest much better in companies that you understand.
Yes.
So if I'm investing in a fashion company, then it's going to be much harder for me to really know if they're doing something really powerful and different or not. So that would be the main point, would be like if I'm investing in something that I don't understand.
It's like buying a stock that you don't know what it does.
Exactly.
What range do you like to invest in? When someone needs a certain amount of money, you're like, oh, that's too low for me or that's too high for me. What is your sweet spot as an angel investor?
I think, there's no like specific thing. I mean, like even at VenturePact, like when we're working with tech companies, we've worked with startups that are like actually building their first product. They don't even have a product, and we help them build their product. And we work with companies like the one I mentioned, where they're, they already have a team, they already have a product. They're just scaling it out. And so I would say we don't usually specify that. It's like more like, okay, this is a company that we like and that we think, we can help.
Got it. So if somebody who said, I need $250,000 and wanted to approach you as an angel investor, or I need $500,000, if the fit was there, that kind of price range is something that you typically look at as an angel investor?
So I mean, if they're looking to raise, it depends on the round, the structure of the round, and who else is invested in, and so our network of investors. So obviously, like I have a network of people that I pass deals to, and we kind of think about together on deals. So I think it depends on the network and how much each person in the network is willing to contribute. So, we always are open to looking at deals and like passing them around, and it might be like that I'm not a good fit, but someone else I know is a good fit. And so, there's a lot of passing around of deals.
Got it.
That would depend. So it's something that would depend on the situation.
Right. And for someone to even become aware of you as a potential investor and your network of investors, is a warm connection ideally the way you like to meet people?
Yeah, so warm connection is good. Definitely, like, it helps validate like the person. Sometimes there's just great people who reach out directly and you don't know. It's hard because you just don't, like, if from an email, there's a few sentences that are written, you're kind of scanning it, so many emails. It's just hard to make an assessment. So sometimes you'll miss out on people that you just don't have time to reach out to respond to. So yeah, warm connections are good because then you have someone else that you know that can vouch for specific things about the person.
Right.
But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, ideally that you just reach out to the person and we can respond. But just in today's world, the email has become a challenge. So warm introductions are preferred. Yeah.
Right. And then when someone pitches you, you prefer the pitch being live versus you looking at the pitch first before you meet them.
I mean, the key is to make sure that this is like a relevant company. So a lot of times companies want to jump on a call straight away, and that's going to be tough. Usually it's best to just kind of make sure there's a good fit first. So what are you talking about? What's your industry?
Right.
What's your experience? What are you trying to solve? That validation part, it's just to make sure you're not, because as I mentioned, like if it's a company that I don't have experience in, then there's no reason for us to take a call because I'm not going to be able to help you on it.
Right.
I can probably, and if I can help you, it's me introducing you to another investor.
Sure.
So first, let me see that other investor.
Right, if they're interested.
And see if he's interested, right? So you don't really need to jump on a call with me. I can just assess that on my own.
Do you look at an actual deck, or do you just a couple lines, like a 90-second pitch?
Yeah, sometimes people send me very long decks, and well, I guess the long decks you can't spend that long on them. So you're really skimming them. I would recommend shortening the decks, because if you shorten the deck, you're choosing what I'm spending my time on. Otherwise, if you have a long deck,
yes,
I'm choosing what I'm spending my time on, and so you might have something important that I missed on.
Right, shorter decks actually get more focus than a longer deck.
Yeah.
That's a great takeaway. What if someone is trying to invent some new kind of game for people to play and it's not technically solving a problem? Do you have any advice for those kinds of developers?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the standard advice, which is like, if you're trying to build a game, the way games grow, if you look at like the history of how games grow, it's pretty kind of organic and kind of crazy somehow. The way some companies grow. We've seen some gaming companies just skyrocket in countries where there was zero marketing, and then over time it takes over these small countries, and then it starts to grow into other countries. So I would say the first version of your gaming development is not cheap. Like obviously it's expensive, it's time consuming. Yeah. So I would try to create whatever that sticky component, like what's the stickiness of the game? I would try to build a very small game that includes that stickiness component. Yeah. And try it out, going through gaming forums and things like that to see if it works. Once you've done that, then I would start to think more about the next. It's like, is this, because gaming is all about its entertainment. Yes. So when you're looking at entertainment companies, it's like, how sticky is it? Is it entertaining? Do people enjoy it? How many times are users coming back to it? So you want to understand your metrics and see like which types of gamers like your product. So are they gamers that already used product X? So if you like product X, you probably like product Y. So let's see what affiliation. So there's many things you can do to like cross market and things like that. And the main thing I would say for gaming is, don't spend too long building your first product. You want to assess the stickiness.
That's real. And I love what you said about, if you like this game, you probably like that game. People love those kind of references, especially since it is entertainment and that's how movies are pitched.
Exactly.
As we're wrapping up our podcast, it went very fast. You gave so much great information. Is there any one particular book or books that you like to recommend to startups, either about investing or just life in general?
That's a very tough question, because there are a lot of books that I like.
It's not Sophie's choice. You can pick more tan one.
Okay, good. I really like the book Drive by Daniel Pink. He talks about how to motivate people, which is very important. And there's a lot of things in that book which help you when you think about how to manage employees and work with employees and lead them. So that's a good book. I like the book by Grove on how only the paranoid survive. He talks about it's an interesting title. What's great about the book is he talks about the challenges of management and leading companies. And so one of the things he talks about in the book is that if you're not paranoid, and then you're less likely to succeed, because the world changes so quickly, and you can quickly become comfortable in something that once worked and no longer does or will no longer work.
Right.
And so what I liked about his statement is that as a leader, you're a great leader is if you can act in the times of struggle, when there's terrible things happening in the company, if you can act without having the emotional baggage of what once was in the company, you can act as a newcomer. So he asked this question, like, if I'm a new owner, if they fired me and I came in as a new CEO, what would I do to revive this company?
That's great.
And basically what that means is, if I was to take out the emotional attachment that I have with our existing business, what decision would I make? And that's how he talks about a personal story, how he moved Intel from the memory business to the microprocessor business. And the reason he made that big shift was because he realized that if another CEO came in, they would do that specific thing.
Wow.
And he just had this emotional attachment to the product. So that was a great book. And then, there's a few other solid books if you want to look at the personal challenges of entrepreneurs. There's a book by Eckhart Tolle called The Power of Now. If you want to look at if you're interested in just the process of like lean startup, obviously there's Eric Ries, a lean startup, and there's Reid Hoffman's books on networks and how the new age of employees, and he has good books there.
Oh, that's great. I really like this concept of only the paranoid survive, and really taking a look non-emotionally, very left brain. It's like renewing your wedding vows almost. And taking a whole new look of recommitting yourself to where you are. Randy, thank you so much. If our listeners want to follow you on Twitter and LinkedIn and follow what's going on with VenturePact, what's the best way for them to stay in touch with someone with your insights and see what other awards you're going to win and follow your career?
I would say Twitter's great. My Twitter handle is @RandyRayess. Rayess is Rayess. LinkedIn is pretty similar. It's just linkedin.com/IN/Randy Rayess. So those are two great ways to reach me. If you have questions about VenturePact, then it's just questions, questions, @VenturePact.com. So those would be the three main ways.
Fantastic. Well, Randy, I'm so excited to watch VenturePact continue to soar, and I know you're going to do a lot of more innovative things in the marketplace, and we're thrilled to have had you on the show. Thank you again.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Successful Pitch podcast. If you like the show, please go to iTunes and write a review, and encourage your friends to write reviews too. It really helps get the word out. People say that the longest distance is between someone's mouth and their wallet. People can tell you they're going to invest, but when it comes time to write the check, they don't do it. So how do you get people to say yes and then follow through? Visualize yourself on the left side of a riverbank, and you have to cross the river, and on the other side of the river is where the funding happens. So first you make up your idea, then you make it real, and then you make it reoccur. Once you start dipping your toe into the water to get to funding, that's where I can help. I get you across that river faster than you would on your own, with a lot less frustration than you will get when you hear a bunch of no's and you don't know why. So if you want some help getting funded faster with less frustration, go to my free funding webinar, sellingsecretsforfunding.com/webinar, and sign up and get in-depth information on how you can get funded fast. Thanks.